Okay, I'd like to call this special committee of the whole meeting to order. It's Thursday, August 28th at 10:01 a.m. Eddie, would you call the roll, please?
Cobb.
Here.
Kuda.
Here.
Larson. Maddox.
Here.
Russell. Here. Posh. Petrus.
All right, Posh is out of town and Petrus will be here in the next couple minutes. So we're here to have a public hearing on the revised charter. I am going to go through a timeline pretty quickly before we start, and then we'll hear from the public. So up on the screen, we have a timeline. I'm going to preface the timeline with a couple of anecdotes. One is that we started putting the Charter Review Commission together at the end of 2022. We did look at some other cities that were changing from city manager to elected mayor. And one of the cities that we looked at was East Providence, Rhode Island. And just so you know, in between the time the amendment was passed to go to an elected mayor and the mayor was elected in East Providence, their city council did 27 amendments before a mayor was ever elected. I'm not admonishing this city. I'm just saying that that would be definitely one extreme. This is 6 years. Right now, we're 6 years after we changed the form of government. So in June of 2023, council appointed a 9-member charter. On July 12th, the first organizational meeting happened with the newly seated Charter Review Commission. On January 8th, I wonder if I could, oops. Why is this not scrolling? Addie, it's not scrolling. Oh, there we, that's because I'm scrolling the wrong way. I'm sorry. On January 8th, the Charter Review Commission met with council, and on the 18th, and on January 22nd of 2024, the Charter Review Commission met with council members, did a debrief, progress report. Same thing on February 6th, February 12th. And on May 21st of 2024, there was a public meeting with residents to discuss the draft. I take it there were many people at that meeting, 60 or 70 people, very good. And then on June 11th, council, I'm sorry, that was the second one. So there were 2 public meetings. On June 11th, council received the Charter Review Commission's full report. And at that time, council's first 2 Charter Review Commission recommendations workshop happened. Then in January, council started talking about looking over and talking about what amendments we wanted. We looked at the Charter Review Commission suggestions, recommendations, and we started making recommendations of our own on these dates. February 22nd, on April 15th. At the committee of the whole meeting, we wrapped up our work, city council, and then we handed that over to the law department. And on August 14th, the law department had taken the Charter Review Commission's work and city council's work and gave us a draft. And then on the 21st.
That actually happened closer to the first week of August, the provision of the updated charter.
Thank you. That's right. It was emailed to us first.
The whole meeting was on the 14th.
Right. Got it. Thank you. And then August 21st, the first amended charter review workshop happened. And then on the 25th, we did a first reading and a public hearing. And, one thing I want everybody to understand is when we schedule a meeting. We don't know exactly when we're going to get the documents at that time. And I do understand the public's concern, having enough time to review the document, but we do have another public hearing today, and we have one tomorrow at 6 p.m. in this room. And then on September 2nd, we are likely to vote on this amended charter, but the public will have until November 4th to keep reviewing and decide how they would like to vote on this. Does anybody want to add anything else? All right, Addie, then we can start with,
Len Friedson.
there might be a few in the basket, by the way.
Good morning. My name is Len Friedson. 3065 Berkshire Road. I'd like to thank the council this morning for all the work that they have done in preparation for the amendments needed for our charter. And of course, I'd like to thank also the Charter Review Commission for their work on this also. It's a big slog, and I'm thanking all of you for it. I also want to thank the council for the work that they've done over the course of the last several years in trying to keep the city above the water level, if you will. But I want to also say that over the last 24 hours, I have done my slog through the charter, the Red Line Charter Amendment. And I want to tell you that I was a bit surprised to see it titled as the first amended charter. For me, this brought back memories of the 2019 amended charter that that council ultimately voted to postpone to make room for the charter amendment for the elected mayor. So I was initially drawn to that and was left with a question for myself. Are we at the ballot for this first amended charter giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the whole? Or are they going to be broken down into parts? By the name of the title, I'm guessing it's a full up-down vote, not individual charter amendments. So that was my conclusion, and I'm a bit surprised. What I'm not surprised by is that I agree with much of the intent of what the council is trying to do, and I know where it's coming from. Today, I'm not going to offer an opinion about the merits of any of the scope of the charter amended, but I do want to draw attention to the fact that there are lots of things in there. It's broad. I would even say it's huge, as big as the 2019 charter changes, in my opinion. There are certainly a lot of low impact items in there that are worthwhile to be changed. Some were missed, I would offer. There's some medium impact things and there's some high impact things. I want to talk briefly about the high impact items that are contained in there. One of the biggest, excuse me, I'm done? Okay,
Originally,
I'll come back. I'll come back. That was 3 minutes, huh?
yeah.
Sorry. Really quickly.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what, we'll go through this and then, yeah.
Robin Coslin.
Good morning, all. Robin Coslin, 1618 Wood Road. I'm not here to talk about the ins and outs of the charter. I'm telling you that you should not be putting it on the ballot in November, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, you have a communications director who is busy undermining this charter as we speak. When I looked at the city news, the first thing that should have been highlighted by the communications director and you guys is why we need a new charter. And I think it's kind of like the obvious is sometimes missed, that we're going from one form of government to another. Our present charter is not suited for our new form of government. So we had this communications director who sent out to the staff, to the city, what looked like a war document to me. My son-in-law certainly, who doesn't follow these things that carefully, that's exactly what it looked like to him. So you're going to have her until, okay, so the mayor's going to be recalled. I'm pretty confident of that. But we have to then wait another 2 weeks for the official tally. And then I don't know how long you have before you get to fire her, but she's suiting the interests of this community right now. Second reason is the lack of trust in institutions. We have all these folks here, you have different opinions on many things, and I don't think people necessarily trust you each as individuals. I don't think they necessarily trust anybody. There's just this lack of trust out there, and without lots and lots of input, it's gonna fail. And my reason for saying it's gonna fail is the anti-gerrymandering initiative of, when was it? November?
Yeah.
People didn't get it, and so they voted no. And they're not going to, if they don't get it, if they don't truly understand, they're going to vote no, and then where are you going to be? So I think you would be much better off waiting till March. Thank you.
Lee Barbie.
Pardon me if I don't stand. My name is Lee Barbie. I live at 1048 Hereford Road. And I had some concerns when I read this document. We as a community here in Cleveland Heights, we've been through a lot as far as the turmoil and the ridicule and the publicity. And reading through this document, it appears that this is pushing us back prior to us going to a mayor system. It's pushing us back to the point where the mayor is going to be like a city manager, in my opinion. It takes all the power away and gives it to the council president. And I'm just not in agreement with that. I would like for the citizens of Cleveland Heights to have the full opportunity to have some community meetings on this, in which I am going to start. And I just believe that this should be pushed back. And, regardless of what has happened as far as under this new mayor system, no matter who becomes the mayor, this takes away all of their powers, in my opinion. And I just think it needs to be pushed back to give whoever becomes the mayor the opportunity to make what some of the members on this council started as far as converting to a mayor system turn back. So I'm not in agreement with this, and I'm going to do everything in my power as a citizen to bring attention to this. Thank you.
Keith Elliott.
Good morning, members of council and everyone here. I'm not going to repeat, I was here on Monday to talk. I'm not going to repeat what I said on Monday. Basically, the theme is that we have a charter, just as has been said, we have a charter that suits a city manager who's responsible for what's going on, and we don't have a city manager, we have a mayor. It's really important to get a charter in place that establishes responsibilities that the people can hold our elected officials accountable for. And that, for me, is what we're doing in this charter. All right, we are making clear who's responsible for what, so that we as the people can hold those who are elected responsible for what it is we've asked them to do and the way we've asked them to do it. That being said, I just want to go on to another topic, which is my disappointment in the City News Special Edition that came out yesterday. Sadly, it appears that whoever prepared that document lacks competence. First, the title, City Council Update, First Amended Charter, Hearings and Council Authority Update. That's not a title which anybody would understand. This is supposed to be a summary of the charter, I would imagine. It's supposed to be informative, all right? That's not a title that's going to make it informative, help people understand it's going to be informative. And then I just want to say that it's poorly written, there's errors, it has the wrong approach. And I might point out as an example, the first item that is noted is adds formal investigative powers to the council. All right, so if anybody's listening, the power of the city council to subpoena is under the Ohio Revised Code. It's not adding any power to council. And that theme of error and misconstruing truth is throughout this so-called summary, or whatever it's supposed to be. I don't know. But what I want to ask people to do, anybody who happens to be listening, all right, or this has any impact, please read the summary from the law director. The law director is responsible to the city, to the mayor, to the council. It's responsible to us, though. Then you can expect some impartial summary, all right? I would also ask you to find and read the report of the Charter Review Commission, which is up on the website. Addie, maybe you can make that more easily available in the meeting documents, where you can see what we really did. We went all out across the area to look to see how do other cities organize their mayor, council, cities, okay? We didn't prefer the mayor over the council or council over the mayor. We just want a working form of government. Okay? So the last thing I want to say is on the 17th, we have a League of Women's Voters public information meeting at the rec center. Please show up, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Thank you very much for your time.
Linda Ostrowski.
Good morning. Nice to see you all again. My name is Linda Strievsky. I live at 2222 Delamere Drive. I was the chair of the Charter Review Commission that worked in 2023 and 2024. And I want to point out that my comments reflect my views. I don't speak for the commission, although I do thank them for their work. I do support what the council is recommending. I do want to emphasize that in the work done by the commission, I feel that we were focused on what needed to be done in the best interest of the city in order to complete work that was started in the 2019 amendment. So that amendment made changes to the charter that directly impacted the mayor, but they were not able at that time to complete the process of changing other provisions in the charter to correctly reflect an appropriate balance of powers between the legislative and executive branches. So to Mr. Barbie's point, I would respectfully say that the charter as it stands right now does not correctly reflect the proper distribution of powers between the legislature and the executive if you have an elected mayor and a city council. That's the gap we were trying to fill. I do also recommend to those who are getting their heads around the charter that the summary posted by the law department that's on the city's website is an excellent introduction. It's not very long, and it will help you understand the major points that are being proposed for change in the charter. And then you can look at the compare right of the full document if you find that you want to dig in deeper. But I do think that we tried very hard to balance appropriately what the powers should be. And I totally agree with Guy's comment that the whole point of this is to try to ensure that the mayor has powers, that the mayor properly needs to carry out his functions, and that the city council has the powers that the city council needs to properly carry out the city council functions. I also want to note that Guy is correct that right now under the Ohio Revised Code, council has the power to investigate and to use subpoenas. The mayor suggested that we put that in the charter. The mayor suggested that. So we accepted his suggestion. Thank you very much.
Karen Lash.
Morning, sorry I'm late. Give me 1 second. I have comments and I also have some questions, and I know you're not supposed to answer questions now, but if someone could get me some afterwards, I'd appreciate it. Okay, thanks. All right, I've read all 43 pages of the amended charter, and I'll just give you the page number and my comments so you can follow along. On page 5, you're changing the voting rights to allow council members to vote if they're attending via Zoom. I don't agree. You don't know what's going on in the background of where the person is, how private it might be, and I don't think they should have voting rights. Page 6, Section 9, council subpoena power. I think some of that is because of today's situation. Hopefully, that won't ever be a need again, but it feels like it's overreaching. That's just my opinion. Section 10, the emergency measures, I agree that the reason for the need be included before something is passed by emergency measure. Too many ordinances and resolutions have been passed, probably because of delay in getting it to council or for whatever reason, but there's too much emergency passages. Page 7, Section 11, President and Vice President of Council. Why can't the President of Council have the ability to veto? Page 8, Council and Administration interactions. I'm very happy with the section that you added. The mayor term, it states that if mayor's recalled successor shall be chosen, it does not designate the President of Council in that particular area, and I'm wondering why. Page 9, the first paragraph says that holding the office does not preclude limited outside employment of the mayor. I don't agree. I think that the mayor's job is full enough that they shouldn't be doing other work. Page 10, like that the city administration is stipulated to attend council meetings. Page 11, the legislative power. I like having the mayor attend executive sessions only by invitation with no voting privileges. I also like the addition of a disapproval of an ordinance item by the mayor will be handled and adding in ordinances that mayor can't veto. Page 12, why has Section 8, interest in contracts, been removed? Page 13, Section 6, the paragraph giving council the ability to remove the mayor under certain conditions. Does that remove the need for a recall by voters? Page 14 is where the recall is removed, so I'm assuming page 13 takes care of that. Page 15, departments. Second paragraph, changing who shall determine and prescribe functions and duties of each department to the council when it used to be issued by the mayor. I definitely disagree. I think it's overreach and blurs the separation of council and administration.
Fortunately, we're out of time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What's her name again? Karen, could we get a copy of that? I was trying to write down the pages. If you can, if you could maybe email us the page numbers and things you were talking about. I was trying to write it down, but it was going too fast. Thank you.
So since that was the last person that signed up, how much more time would you need? Okay, why don't you do your 1 minute, and then Len, why don't you come up and finish yours? It's only 10:25, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, where was I? Oh, having the directors having the council appoint the directors of law, finance, HR, planning, all of those, I think is a major overreach. While all these departments are extremely important to the proper functioning of our city, I think only directors of law and finance should be under council's purview. On page 18 under ballots, why remove the rotating of names on the ballot? I don't know how you plan on putting the names on the ballot, but people who are uninformed, if you put the same, if you put the names in the same order every time, I think uninformed people are just going to pick the top one, and there's potential for unfair advantage. Page 19, nominating petitions. The mayor's only required to get 300 signatures and council only 225. I believe higher thresholds should be set, perhaps 500 and 1,000. My last one, page 42. Why was the second paragraph with the names of the Charter Review Committee removed? Is it because they're going to be replaced with the current members, or is that just going to be removed in its entirety? Thank you.
Okay. Len? I think you left off at high impact.
Yes, I did. Len Friedson, 3065 Berkshire Road. Thank you for allowing me more time, and I will be brief. The high impact items are the ones that draw my attention because they are subject to debate in a big way. And the first on my list is the issue of removal by council. That's a big deal. It was not included previously. It is true that it is present in a few neighboring communities. I don't know if it's ever been exercised or not. I have issues about that. I have issues that are questions about that, how that would work in fact, and what is the impact on the council by doing so? How much time is it going to take to do that? I want to remind myself and the public, our council is intended to be a part-time council, not a full-time council, and a trial or hearing, who knows how long that could take? Can a council actually accomplish that? The issue of departments that has been mentioned by others here today is a big deal. It was specifically attached to the mayor during the 2019 charter amendment, specifically that the mayor would control the departments. The only exception being that council could approve the four that were named. But as far as additions, deletions was all the mayor's purview as running the administration. I have a big concern about the recall percentage petitions dropping from 25% to 15%. As you know, I was somewhat involved in the most recent recall effort. And while it was successful, meaning the petition effort was successful, it was a big lift. And I would argue that it's intended to be a big lift. It's not supposed to be made easier. It's hard, and it should be hard, and it was warranted in this case. Lowering that threshold makes it easier, and I'm concerned about it. One last issue here, or actually two. The language used that includes in this charter amendment includes the presidential election to be held. It has never been so in the past that I'm aware of, and I have concerns about that given the current concern about whether we will have a future election for president coming up in a 3 years. I think there are better ways of language to use that and not include presidential election. If our presidential election is postponed, I don't want it to affect the city. Just saying. There's a legal issue that's also contained in there, and it's referred to as the post-petition certification adjustment. That is, language is included to allow such a thing. I will tell you from the Board of Elections, they have made it clear that that is no longer supported by our Board of Elections, and I will get reconfirmation of that hopefully before tomorrow, but that is legally no longer valid. My last comment is, can this large, huge document pass at the ballot? It's very big. Bigger than I anticipated. I'm not going to argue today about the individual merits, but in order to address it, it's a challenge. And if it's a challenge for those of us who are active, it's going to be a bigger challenge for those who don't. I think this charter needs more work and more time. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And then, do we have an additional, I'm not sure if she's filling. Ma'am, are you intending to speak?
I don't think so. I have what I can.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I just wanted to ask the law director, is there anything that was said that you might need to factually address?
Yes. I'm not prepared to go through the list. I've been making notes. There were some comments that were not specific that talked about inappropriate shifts and things like that. But particularly the last couple of speakers introduced or mentioned a number of specific concerns or things that they liked. And I can go through that and provide some feedback for council.
Okay, but not now, obviously.
Not now.
Okay, got it. Councilman Maddox?
I appreciate you guys for giving me a couple of moments. I have a meeting at 11:30 downtown, but I appreciate us having this hearing. Again, as I stated on the Zoom, I really wanted us to have more time for the public to absorb this information, have discussions about it. I still think this is rushed. I appreciate us scheduling this hearing, the one previously and the one tomorrow, but I still think we need more time for this. There's several things that I wanted to lay out this morning I think would help provide an expanded conversation, at least about what's happening with some of the things that are being viewed in this charter. Number one, I disagree with several things in the charter because it's going to lead to disparate impact with members of this council and possibly the mayor. And by that, I mean that if we were to shift the power of decision-making to remove a council person to this particular council, that could be retaliatory. For instance, I wouldn't even be here right now in this seat, speaking for people that I know I fully represent that are not really represented by other people on this council in a really meaningful way. By doing that, we have taken the decision from the voters and made a decision that the people we've elected get to decide who sits in this seat and who speaks for them. That is a problem considering in the next election, there are only 2 African Americans who are even running. So if Craig Cobb and I were to be elected, or even one of us was to be elected, that means that an almost all-white council will be able to remove the last remaining person of color from that council. That is what I call disparate impact. That should not even be an issue. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. It shouldn't be a risk assessed with this, but it is attached to this. And someone like me might disappear, and every time they're elected to speak for people, marginalized people, this council could remove them just based on the fact that they don't like that, or they're adding rules that they're saying that person violated, which you've already seen tried to happen multiple times. I can't allow that to happen. Pastors and several voting groups and nonprofits have also addressed this. You're going to hear them come in over the next couple of meetings and express these issues. These are things that have already happened across the country, where we've seen councils decide that they don't like a voice on that council and remove them, or even the mayor. And that power should be solely given to the people who elected them. We're seeing that happen right now with the recall vote, and there's no reason to shift that. These are things that the many in the public, especially some people of color that have reached out to me, said we need more time to talk about this, to come in and question how we even arrived at the fact that I could elect someone who speaks for me, and then that council remove them simply because of their feelings, or because of politics, or because of power, or because of the vote that they want, or because of the person they want to replace them with. These are the type of things that could happen through this charter. That's just one example, And I don't know if anyone on this council can tell me how that can't happen, because this council is responsible for making its own rules and deciding who violates them, which means this council can decide who's removed regardless of what 50,000 people decided in terms of their representation. That is extreme disparate impact. That means that someone could be elected, rules could be created, and within 6 months, they're bumped so that a buddy could come in here in this seat. And so these are things that we need to have a conversation about before we continue to move forward. This council is clawing back, I think, through some of these amendments, some of the power that I think the people have decided to give to an executive leader. And so I think we need more time to have conversations around these issues and others. I think this is rushed for no reason. I do believe that if the public does see this, they're going to vote down what they don't understand. I think there is no reason not to give the public more time to question this, to review this, and for outside organizations to come in and look for other instances where we could possibly be negatively impacting the leadership that was duly elected in this city. But it's problematic problematic to continue to move this way. I think we need to pause. We need to give the public more time to see this because as they're seeing this, the only feedback I'm getting is it seems like more power is being shifted from the executive branch back to council, and that's giving some people a reason to kind of celebrate that. We cannot be reactionary based on anyone's feelings of what's happening in the current administration to look at this city moving forward. And so I think we need to pause. I really do. I think we're moving fast for no reason. I think the public needs more time to absorb this, and I do not think that the public should be voting on all of these at once. I think that's just ridiculous to expect them to make so many major changes to this charter and understand them in such a short amount of time. So I think there is no sense of urgency at this stage to do all of this without making sure it's clear to the public. That timeline that we laid out is great, but we know that the public doesn't watch those meetings. So much has shifted and so many things have changed. And so it's great that we have these meetings and this conversation, but it does not change the fact that they've just seen this draft now. And it happened this week. And so I think it's unacceptable to expect them to absorb this, be able to decide on this by November. I think we need to give some other opportunities for some other organizations to come in and take a look and say that maybe we're making a mistake here with some of these. But I can assure you that this charter, as it is written, creates an opportunity for people of color to be removed from this council like that, simply by changing the rules on this council, and that is a fact. So if someone on this council can tell me how that is not true, I would love to hear it today, because you're going to hear from at least 3 civil rights organizations and 5 different churches that are going to tell you different. And I'm not going to allow something like that to happen and a marginalized voice to be removed simply because some on this council don't like my voice, and that's clearly what's happening. You're being reactionary because some of you are uncomfortable with people like me on this council, but that's precisely why I'm here. This is problematic. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Any other comments from council? I mean, and I certainly want to go over some of these amendments as well. Go ahead, Councilwoman Larson.
Question for Councilor Maddox. Are you speaking about the item on page 2 where section 3 talks about removal?
Yes.
Okay. There are words already in the charter that give council. It says the council shall be the judge of the election and qualification of its own members. It may expel any member for gross misconduct or malfeasance and I'm skipping the red line, in or disqualification for office or for conviction of a crime. They change that to felony involving moral turpitude. What I'm trying to get at is there is already wording in the current charter. So I don't understand why at this late date in the game, you're coming up with this particular concern.
I stated this concern from the beginning. I've been talking about disparate impact on several of these. What that charter does change is the fact that I cannot be removed because of rules this council made, not because I broke the law or did anything else. You all could simply make rules and decide because I violated those rules, I could be removed. Is that not correct?
No.
So if this
that's
council,
actually not correct.
if this council creates rules that I'm to abide by, I can't be removed because I violated those?
No, because that would be, the rules aren't part of what's in the charter. But I'll let the law director.
That he is correct that a removal could be accomplished for a violation of the rules. What's not correct is that that's new language. That's in the existing city charter and has been.
I just mean
which I have been stating from the beginning was already problematic, and now we're leaning into it. So again, and I know this is a fact, and I'm going to tell the public why, because when I was elected, members of this council tried to do it immediately by creating rules and having me removed. And you can ask the former president. It's almost happened already. It almost happened already. And so I'm telling this public, it can happen, and if this is moved forward, it will happen, just based on how this council has already moved. If Council President Hart hadn't stepped in, I would not be sitting at this chair probably, and that is the fact. They try to use rules, create rules to have me removed specifically based on things that I've said and how I've stood up on this council, names that I've called. That happened in the first 2 years of this council. We are not going to weaponize this to remove members we don't like because our feelings are hurt, but that's precisely what could happen. And I appreciate the law director for stating that, but it is fact. It shouldn't have been there, and this council already tried to use it once. It's going to happen to someone, and if it's in a minority, I'm telling you, this is just a problem. So we can sit here and say, well, why am I saying this is late in the game? I've been saying that this was problematic, how we moved with this, which is why I didn't participate in many of these conversations and why Linda Strachey can tell you I didn't even show up to those charter reviews. This was all about rolling back power and being able to punish a lot of people. A lot of these policies are created around feelings and rolling back this power again and giving it back to people who we feel like we can trust more. I am not going to allow us to pass anything without opening my mouth that could possibly remove minorities from this council. Again, if this passes and there are only 2 black people who are running for council next year or this year, and one of us wins, one of us loses, there's one of us on this council we could remove like that. That voice, that representation is gone from the people in this city. And 50% of this city is African American. This council's already leaning heavy in one way based on the next election. This opens up the door for that entire voice to be removed. It can't allow that to happen. It's problematic. And it can, based on the rules that this council sets for itself.
So I'm completely unaware of any, in the first 2 years of this council, of any such movement. It didn't happen as far as I know.
That's
The
fine.
other thing,
I'll send out the emails and the agenda and the rules that were created to have me removed.
all right. I want to just address a couple of things. One is that if we were to break up this into different components, I actually think that could be more kind of make it more difficult to understand. I don't see that. And this whole process really is 7 years in the making, because this started in early 2018 with the first Charter Review Commission. So to call this rushed, it's almost been a 7-year process. The first thing this Charter Review Commission did was review what the previous Charter Review Commission did, and we, City Council, reviewed what the second Charter Review Commission did starting late last year and then early this year. So I think characterizing this as rushed is just grossly inaccurate. I also believe that municipal elections are by far the better time to put something like this in front of the electorate, because this is when the people who pay attention to these kind of issues vote. And I will tell you, a May partisan primary is not the place where people focused on a municipal election. Those are not the same, that is not the same voter group. So I would strongly, and I do not think we should wait 2 years for the next municipal election, unless you disagree with my analysis that a partisan primary is a better place to put a charter review on the ballot. I don't see that. Almost every amendment, almost every single amendment in this charter, the ones that have been changed, come from other charters. Actually, I think every single one does, but I'm going to say, just to err on the side of caution, probably high 90% have been vetted and used by other similar suburbs. And just because I remember one comment about subpoena power, I just want to reiterate that is completely in the Ohio Revised Code. We already have that power. Putting it in the charter is simply a clearer way to apply it for this city council. Any other comments
President?
that are general? Yes.
You asked a moment ago for some factual comments, and I did go back as people were speaking and look at a few of the comments, and I can touch on a few of those quickly if you would like.
Sure, please.
One was, there was a comment about the new emergency language, and I don't know that it was necessarily anti, but I would say that the real change here in the charter is that it now has its own clearly entitled section, so that when people are looking to see how do emergencies work, what are the requirements, when can they be used, how many votes does it take, they can find it. It's currently buried way back in the charter in Article 8, and it's not really accessible to anyone looking in from the public. The comment about limited outside employment for the mayor, and that's really a full-time position. Without substantive comment, I would just say that that's what the charter currently says. these proposed amendments don't change that existing provision in any way. The question about why was the language prohibiting having an interest in contracts removed is because that was essentially the sum total of the ethical requirements that appeared in the charter previously. So the Charter Review Commission determined, and I think it's a good way to go, that they would have the charter point to the ethical laws of the state of Ohio, which cover interest in contracts, conflicts of interest, many other ethical restrictions that apply to public officials. And there's a large body of law out there, from statutory law to case law to Ohio Ethics Commission opinions and Ohio Attorney General opinions that all relate very specifically to those state statutes and allow the city, if it ever needs to do that, to more easily evaluate somebody's conduct and determine whether it is or is not compliant with the state's ethics laws. Removal versus recall, I think the question was, does one of those eliminate the need for the other? The distinction is that the removal provisions, again, council removal is already there. It's slightly changed. The mayor removal provision is new. There are legitimate questions people can ask about that, certainly. But removal is by council. Recall is by the electorate. And recall results in a removal if it's successful, but that's the distinction, and they both appear in the charter. Then let's see. I guess the other one was just with regard to the presidential elections. I don't have a strong feeling on the use of that terminology. That was something that the Charter Review Commission put in. It could be done differently. I kind of shudder to think that we need to make changes anticipating that we won't have presidential elections in the future. But the timing works, and presidential elections are referred to in the revised code for purposes of determining when certain elections, primaries, special elections, et cetera, can occur. So I thought it was fine. I am not averse to changing that if council, sees fit to do that. And then finally, the idea that that it's better for council to do this in May rather than November, that's a council decision. But I would point out that under the Constitution, a charter can be changed anytime
I didn't realize that.
council by 5 votes sends proposed amendments to the voters, and the voters approve it at an election, which can be a special election, not less than 60 or more than 120 days after council sends it, or the same if there's an initiated charter amendment. If the charter amendment, the first amended charter, were put on the ballot in November and were to fail, it could go back on in the ballot in May if council determined that there were some changes that needed to be made, or if a different sort of publicity campaign were required. Council can do those things. The city can do those things. It doesn't preclude these issues being raised again in the future. So, and again, that's just under the Constitution. You could change it this election. You could change it back at the next election.
Great. Well, thank you for that clarification, Vice President Russell. Oh,
Oh, no, go ahead.
you call. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the Law Department for putting together the summary. I, too, think that it was a very nice document and was very helpful in overviewing the recommended changes. Do we have clarification on how that summary that went out in the City News was put together? Do we know who wrote that?
I know that Addie sent over the content, but didn't write the other words, let's just say. She sent over the dates.
Did the Law Department take a look over that before it went out?
I mean,
No, so our understanding is that it was put together by the Communications Department. I just feel like something regarding legal changes should at least be reviewed by the Law Department before it goes out, so that we're ensuring that it's accurate and not misleading residents into believing one thing or another.
Well, I think at the very least, if a member of council or our clerk of council sends something over, that it would be nice if the Communications Department would run it by, in this case, the clerk, to say, is this okay? since it was our initiative that we wanted to advertise. Go ahead, Vice President Russell.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for coming today and speaking out. I really agree with Karen, Lynn, Harriet, Robin, Mr. Barbie on their decision that we should wait. I think there are some things in here that are problematic and overreaching. I do think there are some things in here we could change immediately to move forward on, but I think moving it as one document where all of us don't agree on every section of it. I know when I was on the Charter Review Commission for the county, they moved things in different sections versus the full document at one time. There could be some things in here that we could actually talk about and work out and maybe look at things that all 7 of us agree on to move forward. That is not so problematic, but I think, I know some of the suggestions that I made, definitely with the law director and the finance director was about the perception of the law director being in a position where he had to choose between representing council or the mayor or the city. So we didn't want to put him in that type of position where he was able to do that openly. The finance director works directly with the council, but when you come to other provisions in the agreement, I do think they are somewhat overstepping and could be problematic. And I don't think we should be doing a jerk reaction on what has been happening. And it will be really good. I know this timeline here, but people are not looking at that timeline because most people have called and says, what is a public meeting versus a public hearing? Even though those are meetings that council had that are open to the public and can sit and talk and whatever. Sometimes our public meetings, we don't allow people to talk. We don't allow people to engage with us in those meetings. So a public hearing and a public meeting is different perspectives of what people are looking for. And I think this is the first final document that everyone has received that is now, that has everything in it. And actually, it should be highlighted to say what the actual Charter Review Commission proposed and another highlight of what the council added to what the Charter Review Commission added. So people can actually see what the original recommendations were from the charter and what council actually added to those provisions. So I think I would not want to vote on this full document as it is today.
Thank you. I would just say, Madam Vice President, if there are a couple of issues you'd like to hash out today, just to make it, I mean, the idea is that the majority of us on each and every one of these items would be in favor of moving it forward. We know the chances of getting 7 people in agreement with all these issues, and regardless of how it was broken up, it would still be the same number of amendments. And I'm just saying, given that, I would certainly entertain any discussion to make us, to get as broad of a consensus as we could get on this document.
And I still say that even though we have a full document, the full document does not have to move forward. The full document, if 4 of you all agree on the full document, that's fine. That means you have the majority. That means it moves forward. I'm not in agreement of the full document. That's what I'm saying. So I would like to have, it's up to the residents and the voters, because everyone here has stated some type of reservation on how some of the things seem to be overreaching. And I'm just saying that I am for 100% a clear and check and balance government, period. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. That was the purpose. And a lot of it was to give the residents the power of voting in and removing. So I don't want to see anybody being mayor or anybody being on council with this document being a 10-year document that every branch of government should have its own autonomy and it should be able to work collaborative together, but not overreaching, we're overpowering each other. And I just see some of those things that's in here.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. President, if I might, and Madam Vice President, just two things. 4 votes is not enough to send proposed charter amendments to the electors. It takes 5. It has to be a supermajority. And then secondly, the 10-year document that came up somewhere else this morning. Someone said this is a 10-year deal you're locking us into. As I mentioned a moment ago, the charter can be changed immediately, and there is no set duration on it. It's unlawful to try to do that, and this does not do that. It does provide for a 10-year charter review, at least every 10 years process. So it's possible if this council or future councils didn't determine to review it earlier, that review might not take place for 10 years.
To make changes within that, would that cost the city money?
Not if it were at a regular election.
But a special election, it would.
Special election that doesn't coincide with a different election, yeah, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Other? Yes, go ahead.
As I previously noted, we've spent a lot of time talking through these. I think that across meetings that were almost entirely in the evenings and on the weekends, we spent about like 22 hours. This is the first time that I'm hearing about reservations about the document in an interest to try to come up with specific actionable things that we could work on. Could we try to pull together a list of some of the reservations so that we can have additional conversations about those items?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be appropriate.
I would be happy to do that. And I just want to indicate, you know, I am so really tired of the insinuation of weekend meetings, evening meetings, and all of these type of meetings. We have had more meetings of council and special meetings in the last 2 years last 2 years than I have ever been in since I've been on council since 2019. And for the last 2 years, publicly, I have announced what my work schedule is. And if anything happens prior to 6 o'clock, I am not able to be there. So I don't want to hear that anymore about weekends and all these special meetings. The charter requires council members to come to the first and third council meeting of every month. That's our duty. And to have our committee meetings. Every committee meeting on this council starts at 5 o'clock. And that's your choice. I don't begrudge that. Councilwoman Larson has made it her business, and I want to thank her so very much for that. She makes an accommodation to have her meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning or at 6 o'clock in the morning to reflect Mr. Posh and my schedule. So I don't want to hear about meetings and missing meetings when all of these are special meetings and they are subject to whoever is available to be there. So I don't want to hear that again. Thank you.
All right, Vice President Russell, I have to be honest, I didn't hear that at all. What I heard was just a comment about how much time we've spent on it. It had nothing to do with who was there or who wasn't there.
Mr. President, if I could say it, just to speak on her behalf, it's the truth, because Linda Strasky stood here and tried to shame folks who weren't talking to them.
I'm talking about what
Every
Councilman
time she's
Petrus
made
said.
It's going around from council members of the Charter Review. These meetings, we can't shame people or try to bring things up when things are added to this. The amount of time they spent having this conversation has zero to do with what the public needs to look at and review. So trying to shame people for what they did or didn't do or how many meetings we had or conversations, it sounds like we're frustrated that we want to have this conversation in the day of light. Stop with all of this. This is what we've done with our timeline. This is the amount of time we've invested. That's the time that was expected because this is what you wanted to do. The public now has the right to review this, and they should not be rushed. So the same time that we had to work on this and have those Saturday and evening conversations, the public has the right to review this, ask questions, and give comments. So let's stop with all of this. They should have shown up here, or where was this timeline? It is my responsibility as an elected official when we have a finished document to speak for the people. So let's stop cutting all this crap out.
And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing right now.
And
Thank
we're
you.
rushing it. So let's continue to let the public ask the questions.
We're agreed.
Put all this timeline sideline talk and conversations about how much time we've invested has nothing to do with the fact that the public is just seeing this document for the first time, and they've got the right to digest this just as much as we had in creating this document.
I think the
Gotta
public,
let that go.
I think the public has a right to know what has been done up to this point. There's no shame. It's just a matter of here's how we got here. That was maybe 5 minutes, and the rest of it was keep moving. We do have another speaker?
Yes.
Okay.
Jessica Cohen.
Yay.
Hi, Jessica Cohen, current chair of the Planning Commission, and I served as the vice chair of the Charter Review Commission. I apologize for being late. I'm managing a preschooler before nursery school starts next week, but I wanted to share just a few thoughts. I am very appreciative of the most recent Charter Reviews Commission's efforts on this and the amount of time and energy that council has put in to moving this forward. Looking at the necessity of getting our charter to align with our current structure and form of government, I think that this is a huge step forward, and I was very appreciative of the final draft that we were to look at. I wanted to mention just 3 tweaks that I thought could be made that I've shared with some folks. One is there are 2 publicity, and I left my haste to get my toddler out of the house. I left the charter with my notes on it at home, but there are 2 notice and publicity sections that only require notice by mail and by publishing in a newspaper. I don't know about you, but there are very few people that get a printed newspaper anymore, and I wanted to suggest that you include a requirement to also publicize whatever needs to be publicized at all forms of city electronic communication. So I envision that as requiring social media and the city newsletter. So that was one, I thought, modernization piece that was missing. The second one is on the Charter Review Commission provision itself. In the boards and commissions section of the charter, it notes that any person that serves on a city board or commission would be considered an officer or having an office. And then in the Charter Review Commission, it says that if you're currently holding office or a staff in the city, you're not allowed to serve on the Charter Review Commission. I just want to point out that's probably not the intent to preclude current commissioners and board members from serving on the Charter Review Commission. Those are the folks that are probably most qualified to serve. And so you just want to look at that conflict there and maybe tweak the language. And third, subpoena power for the council. I don't disagree because I think you see on the federal level, Congress has subpoena power as well. But I wanted to ask the law director to look to add some language in there that notes that subpoena power is only limited to public municipal documents for the city of Cleveland Heights, and subpoenaing city staff or city officials or officers for any purpose that they deem necessary. I wouldn't want that subpoena power to be interpreted as the right to subpoena private sector, either documents, exhibits, staff, or things like that. And I don't think legally that was differentiated in the language. So those were my 3 comments. And I just want to, again, thank the council for all of their time and energy on this, as well as the Charter Review Commission, and urge you to get this package on the November ballot. I think it's going to be really important for the next administration to have this a fully aligned charter document to work with our new government structure. So thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to speak now.
Thank you. And those did match your text. So, Director Hanna, did you on the subpoena power? Yes. I mean that I didn't realize until this moment that could have a broader effect.
Typically, that's what a subpoena does. So I think that it would require defining or curtailing that authority to an extent, but I'll look at that and report back to council.
Would that have to be done by ordinance in the absence of the specifics, or I'm just saying if it was passed as is?
Would you like me to look into that and
Yes.
write something up for you? I'll do that.
I see where you're leading.
I don't want to just talk off the top of my head.
I understand.
It's a complex
I understand.
issue, yeah.
Thank you for that. All right. You had to leave, so I want to give you the last word.
Just I know that there's an other on the agenda, and I think it's important that sometime over the next couple of meetings that council has a conversation around rules for council chambers, and not just our members, but the people attending. I think if we're going to have folks start coming back in, we need to make sure that we have some guardrails around behavior and making sure that we know how we're going to handle that, including whether or not we're going to ban people from council chambers who violates those rules. I think we're at that point now. So I would love to have that conversation.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Are there any specific amendments that anybody wants to talk about? Now, I have a couple, but I don't necessarily have to go first.
I would like some time to put together the amendments that I would like to discuss, like Councilman Petrus, excuse me, said, and then I can have that all in one document.
Okay, that's fine. Can you bring those tomorrow? All right. Any specific amendments? I have a couple. All right, go ahead, Councilwoman Larson.
I really want to finish up discussion on the section called Directors on page 10.
All right.
There's concern about, on my part, that the directors that we've mentioned that in the current document.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, on page 10, I have city administrator.
I think she's referring to page
Section
10 of
2 on the
clean working
bottom.
Draft.
I'm sorry.
It's the clean working draft where it's on page 10, and
Oh.
otherwise it's on,
All right, I'm on the red line. I'm sorry.
Which do
Okay.
you prefer to talk?
You're on
use?
15, that's fine. I found it.
Okay. I'd prefer to speak the same as everybody else is looking at. I'm going to get to page 15.
No, I'm saying it's the same section. It's the same section on the red line draft. So you can read off page 10 on the, I don't know what you call it, clean draft.
Well, I'm using the red line.
Okay.
The discussions we've had are about, no, that's not the same. First paragraph in section 2, where it talks about the directors who are named and which directors council will ask to be, or council shall be required to approve. Majority of council members approve the directors. The last sentence says the mayor may remove the director of any department subject to the approval of a majority of the members elected or appointed to council. The last time we met on Monday, I talked about specifying that this would be the law director and the finance director. I'm now proposing that we leave that sentence as it is in the red line version, because that would give the council the opportunity to receive information from the mayor as to his or her cause, as to the termination, that choice that he or she has made. So I'm proposing to leave that sentence as is. And just open up for discussion.
All right. Any discussion?
I'm staying with the position I had before that we all had talked about was the law director and the director of finance. Yes. Those are the two directors that council deals with.
Well, certainly the most. Any comment from anyone else? Okay. So I need to get some type of consensus about where we're at here. Go ahead, Councilman
regard to the
Petros.
director's question, we would need 5 people to take a particular position. I personally think that law and finance are sufficient, and so I agree with Vice President Russell that that would probably be a sufficient protection.
Councilwoman Larson, does this satisfy what you were talking about? Because I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
No, we are.
Oh, we are, okay.
Talking
All right.
about revising or not revising the last sentence in this section.
And not revising it would allow for finance and, would limit it to finance and law, correct?
No, we would have to revise it if you want to specify the Director of Law and the Director of Finance.
Got it.
And my viewpoint on this is I would like to leave the sentence as it reads now.
Got it. That's what I meant by not revising. Go ahead, Councilman Cobb.
I think the only change is we need to address that, and I'm trying to look for the language, that the appointments have to coincide with the mayor's term of office in order to make sure that even for the finance and the law director, that a new mayor does have the ability to hire his own law director and finance director without first getting approval from city council as to the removal of anyone that they inherit. And I think the law director has got some language that addresses that.
True.
I'm sorry.
Everyone on council, yes.
Yeah, I found the language. The mayor shall appoint the director of each department for a term running concurrently with the term of the mayor making the appointment, or words to that effect.
All right. Do we have agreement on that?
Consensus.
Can we get consensus on what that last section, that last sentence reads? And then talk about, because is yours a separate
I
consideration?
agree they're separate.
Where would you be inserting that?
Well, if you're going to make the removal of any department heads subject to council approval, there needs to be language that's inserted in this provision that does give the mayor the ability to remove any department head that they inherit. Since the removal requires council approval, what if a council, well, I like the current director of law, I don't want the new mayor to have the ability to hire their own law director.
So would you remove that last sentence in that section? That's what I'm asking.
No, we would just insert language earlier in there.
Okay.
My screen is too small to get this all on here, but the law director has language that I think addresses that.
Would it be easier if that, for our next meeting tomorrow, that we put it all on paper so we can all see it?
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to try to dissect it here.
Yeah, I mean, I have it.
I mean, you have it, but we all don't have it, and we're looking on our computers and trying to put in and dot in things.
Thank you.
It's the law director sent it out earlier to us. I think that went this
Okay.
morning.
That was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that one.
Yeah, I can read it if you'd like, but
Is it here?
Yeah.
folks should have it.
Well, first of all, are we agreed that we want to limit this to the 2 positions, law and finance?
Bless you.
I mean, I've heard, I think, everyone but Councilman Cobb weigh in on the limiting council to confirm the firing of those employees. Is that the right term? Confirm the firing, the dismissal,
Confirm, approve, yeah.
approve, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that the mayor should have the ability to remove anyone that they appoint without city council approval, with the exception of the law director and the finance director.
Okay.
And
So
that's the proposed language.
So we have consensus there, and then we just need to fix, well, at least for people that are here. And then we need the language to make sure that a new mayor, because it wouldn't apply to a mayor that was reelected, I don't think. I mean,
It would apply.
it would apply, but I mean, it wouldn't be needed necessarily, but I guess you never know. Let me ask the law director a question. What if council doesn't want to sign off? You know, they're just agnostic about it, about a firing, about a dismissal. Is there a time limit? How would this work? Like, you know, this is that's the part I don't understand. Let's say the mayor fires the finance director and council doesn't really want to weigh in on it. They're okay with it, but they don't want to make a formal action either way.
That I don't agree that it's an implicit approval. I think that the way that it's written, it suggests that the termination would not occur until the mayor has proposed it and the council has approved it.
So what would compel, time-wise, what would compel?
Your obligation to work with the administration in good faith for the delivery of the best possible services to the residents would compel you to take it up when the mayor asked you to.
I mean, you could say that about a lot of things, but we have, you know.
There's no time limit, and I don't think you want to try to
60
get
days.
into that level of granular detail. It's a recipe for disaster. So I think the idea would be if the mayor comes to you and says, I want to terminate the law director, since that's everyone's favorite example,
That's why I used the finance director.
you would presumably have some discussion in executive session. You would say, gosh, we're on board with this, or we're not. If you're not, then, you know, it wouldn't go forward. If you are, you would presumably handle it in a quick and clean way, you know, so that the city looks professional and like it has its act together.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I just, you know, just remember it took a year and 1 month for council with an open-ended ability to replace a council member that resigned.
But that's an empty position. I mean, so you could create a situation by not taking it up or putting it on an agenda where perhaps a mayor would bring it up at every meeting and embarrass that director. I think council would not be going along with that, and the council would act.
I mean, fair enough.
One way or the other.
Fair enough. I just, you know, just looking at all the angles. So do we have a consensus here on this issue? Yep. All right. Any other sections? I know that one was brought up Monday.
There were changes suggested in Article 11, Section 3. There were two changes that are reflected in the language that I sent to council. One was pursuant to Councilman Cobb's suggestion that the charter reflect council's authority to adopt ordinances to prescribe rules for the functioning of boards and commissions. The other is in regard to the concern that the council vice president, I think appropriately brought up. As written in the draft currently, council could remove any member of any board or commission, even if they were appointed by the mayor. And so the new language says that would mean that council would have no ability to remove a mayoral appointment to a board or commission unless the mayor wanted to remove that person and put that process in motion, at which point it would just require the approval of council.
What page were you on? Sorry.
That's in the new language that was emailed yesterday separately, since council hadn't determined.
Article 11, Section 3.
Right.
Oh, I didn't go down further enough.
Yeah.
So that last language, whoops, let me find it here. The last part that I was talking about would say, Except in the case of mayor-appointed members of boards, commissions, or advisory bodies, council may remove any board or commission member for any reason provided for the removal of the mayor or a member of council for the failure to attend meetings of the board or commission or similar body, or as provided under the general laws of Ohio or other just cause, provided that the removal shall require not less than 10 days written notice of the meeting where it will be considered and an opportunity for the board or commission member to be heard. And then brand new is when the mayor has appointed the board or commission member, the mayor may remove the member for the reasons set forth for council removal of board and commission members, subject to the approval of the council. So council can't initiate the removal of, under this language, can't pull somebody off of a board or commission that was appointed by the mayor unless the mayor says, I want to do this.
The council can remove someone that they appointed
Correct,
without the approval of the mayor.
correct.
I'm just saying, the knife cuts both ways. That's all I'm saying.
This is your document at this
Yeah,
point,
no,
so,
I'm just saying.
yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, council appointees should be subject to council and mayor appointees should be subject to the mayor. Go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
I agree with that. I mean, the mayor, he or she should be able to remove one of their appointees without needing council approval.
For the cause. that's
Again,
in
up
there.
to you, but keep in mind that the proceeding of the legislative authority brings with it a connotation of due process and can provide some legal protections for the city. It is potentially a hurdle that the mayor would need to clear, but there are some benefits as well. But whatever council wants us to say is good with me. And that would address even just providing the mayor the ability to remove mayorally appointed members would address one of the current issues, which is it's not expressly set forth in a clear way. And that would be an improvement over the current situation.
Well,
Go ahead.
what's the consensus of everyone that the mayor can make his removal? I think that's the question we need to answer.
I think that's fair.
I'm in agreement with that.
Me too.
Agreed.
You don't even have to write it up. It's written. Yeah. I went, well, just, yeah, from red line. Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm going to, let me just see what, any other amendments to discuss.
Did you see that Mr. Barbie put a request to speak in the box?
I did not. That's okay. Can you do it in 2 minutes? Yes. Okay, great.
Again, excuse me, because I can't stand. But as I sit here and I listen to the back and forth that's going on and the consensus and the non-consensus, it just further instills in my mind and everybody that's in the audience here that this document is a liquid document and it's still not complete yet. And for the readings of this to go forward, I believe is still more reason for this to be pushed back because myself, I'm here, it's 10 o'clock. Luckily I've been off work and I could get here, but any other time I wouldn't be able to hear this. So this is all the more reason that I said that this needs to be pushed back so that the citizens can digest this, talk with each other about this. I know for myself that I will be bringing more light to this meeting and what's going on here. But I just don't believe, I just think the direction this council is in right now, it needs to be pushed back. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. And just so you know, the two two particular entries that we just talked about were the last ones brought up to us. 99% of this has been settled for quite a long time.
I
And
understand
you're
that,
just hearing,
I'm just saying the overall picture.
but the overall picture is what I said, 99% of it has been settled, and we're tweaking the last two things that have been brought up very recently. So, I mean, to paint the picture of that this is how we're dealing with the whole document would be inaccurate. That's all I'm saying.
The whole document is still, it seems to be a liquid document.
Yeah, well, okay, I understand. That's your feeling, and certainly you're entitled to that. Any other problems or discussion with any of these particular amendments?
Still would suggest that we have an opportunity to go through it again and just, because like I said, I still have some things I would like to bring forward.
And we're going to do that tomorrow.
Yeah, so that gives me time to go to look at it.
All right, very good. Yes.
A couple of questions. And maybe the law director knows, do we know offhand the approximate cost of holding a special election? And then the second question,
I'm going to say no into the microphone because I was just asked to speak into the microphone. But it's easily ascertainable.
all right. I think one concern, and I'll just say this for myself, is that this current council, I believe, needs to be the council that sends this matter to the voters, whether it is this year or early next year. Because if we kick this down the road, so to speak, which is what happened with the first charter changes,
Goes in the dustbin.
a new composed council, and there will be, there will potentially be some new council members after the first of the year would want to revisit this themselves. So what if we were to pass this and not put it on the ballot in November, is there a way that we can ensure that it does go on the next ballot? If that's making any sense.
You were to pass it and it would not go on
Well,
November?
the deadline for getting something to the Board of Elections is the first week in September, right?
Right.
Yes.
And if we send it after that date, they will schedule it for the next election.
They'll schedule it for the next election occurring within a 60 to 120 day time period. You'd be past November if you did this after September 5th or got it to them after that date. And so at that point, there would be a special election in that 60 to 120 day time period.
They would be compelled to
The Constitution
call it for a
compels that,
special
yeah.
election. And so then if we don't want to incur the cost of a special election, there's no way that we can ensure that this current council would be the council that's sending something to the voters.
And I would add not only that, but special elections have a frighteningly low turnout. And again, I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but there is, in my view, no better time to do it than a municipal election. It just, I just can't see anybody making a case that a partisan primary would be better or even a special election. But, we all have opinions. Go ahead, Councilwoman Larson.
I just want to confirm with you, President Kuda, that the questions that were asked today and that have been raised by our fellow council colleagues will be addressed tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. Will you
Absolutely.
be able to open that discussion up for that?
I mean, that's why we're doing this.
All right.
That's exactly why we're doing this.
Thank you.
Well, if there are no other comments, I would like to ask the 5 members, including myself that are here, if you are willing to stay a little bit longer and go into executive session to talk about a real estate matter.
I am.
Anybody? Okay. All right, Councilman Cobb? Yes. I'm sorry, public, well, I'll let Councilman Cobb be specific by reading the the ordinance pending. What I wanted to say was a pending a development matter.
You're talking about a request for economic development assistance?
Yes.
And rather than anything involving the city purchasing real property or the city selling currently owned real property?
Thank you for that clarification.
I'm
Yes.
going to read the broad language.
Council President Kuda.
Yeah.
We did not see that on our agenda.
That is, it still is, we can still call for I'm asking, can we still call for a executive session if it isn't on the agenda?
I think the answer is yes, but I think that it's subject to somebody complaining that there was no mention of it at all since this is a special meeting. So that's all I can tell you. If it's something that can wait until tomorrow evening, you could put something on the agenda that would indicate that there might be an executive session. As a general matter, executive sessions can be held in special or regular meetings of the council or its committees of a public body.
Well, do we need to make a motion to amend the agenda to add this, or can we just proceed directly to make the motion to go into executive session?
If you're moving forward, you can just make the motion to go into executive session.
Okay. And that
it needs to be unanimous for economic development assistance, not just the majority.
in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to consider the lease or sale of city-owned real property and to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, Addie, call the roll.
Cobb,
Aye.
Kuda,
Aye.
Petrus,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Russell.
All right, let's go into the conference room, if that's okay. And thank you all for coming today. This meeting is adjourned. I'm sorry, this meeting is not adjourned. We'll come back and adjourn it later. My bad. Okay, we are out of executive session. This meeting is adjourned at 12:29. Thank you.